Worker tweets Elon Musk and asks, "Have I been fired?" Tweet. The guy's name, I'm going to screw it up, so I don't want to mess it up. It's looks very Vikingish, Norwegianish, Swedish. So I don't want to screw his name up. But this is what he tweeted to Elon Musk. "Your head of HR is not able to confirm if I am employed or not." Now listen, I love the moxie. Okay, this story gets better. Why did he tweet the CEO of Twitter to see if he was still employed? Well, here's why. 9 days this gentleman went being frozen out of all Twitter's accounts, email, social, everything. He's frozen out. Now, that was probably after day one might have been your first clue. This guy stuck it out for 9 days, couldn't communicate. So Musk responds to the tweet and says, "What work have you been doing?" After a series of follow-up questions and answers back and forth between the two, this guy ends up receiving an email from HR saying that he had, in fact, been fired. Dum, dum, dum. I mean, I think we all kind of knew that, But now listen to this. This is so tragic, and we're going to get into the biggest problem that Americans have with their boss based on this story. I'm going to reveal it to you in moments. But this is a 45-year-old senior director of product design. He's not the intern in the mailroom. This is a senior director of Twitter. Gets locked out, no notification, nothing. Just, we're ghosting you. This is so pathetic. Well, this leads to an article I saw in the New York Post. What is the biggest problem that American workers have with their boss? What do you think it is? However you're listening, however you're watching, what do you think it is? I'm going to give you 5 seconds. What do you think? The biggest problem that Americans have with their boss. All right, here's the answer. The answer is communication. That's the biggest problem that American workers have, according to the data, with their boss. And it seems simplistic, but it's holistic. If you have a leader who's bad at communicating, I promise you, they're bad at a lot of things. They're bad at a lot of things. Because a poor communicator creates a cascade of problems. Now, isn't this true in our relationships? Let's pull back for a moment. Let's pull back from a professional setting and think of your relationships. When communication isn't healthy, what does it do to your relationships? Let's think of ourselves as customers. How frustrating is it when you've got a problem with a product or service and you're working with the company and the communication is poor? Folks, this is core stuff. 2 in 5 workers in America describe their workplace environment as challenging. 3 in 4 office employees question whether their workplace has given them sufficient training necessary to do their current job. Training, preparedness, that comes from communication. You ask me how? Well, I'll tell you. If you get hired into a new job, let's just play this out, and you're there for a week or so, and you're going through your training, and then the training time ends, and it's now time for you to be set free, right? Fly, little bird, and they push you out of the nest. I'm going to tell you something. You inherently know in your soul whether or not you've been trained properly. You just do. And it just comes down to your knowledge versus the fear of doing something new. A person who has natural fear of doing something for the first time, but also feels like they have the adequate knowledge to do it, they step through that fear. If I take you back to being a little kid when you rode a bike for the first time, At some time in that process, when your mom or your dad or your brother or whoever's teaching you to ride a bike, they teach you how to ride a bike. And at first it's like, I don't have enough knowledge. There's no way I'm going to be able to ride this bike. And as time goes on, you get to a point where you're still nervous about riding the bike without the training wheels or dad holding the back of the seat or whatever it is. But you come to that point, and this is huge for us to understand the way our brains are. See, our brains are wired to protect us from danger. That's the fight or flight mechanism in the amygdala. So our brains are sitting there going, do we know enough? Do we know enough? Do we know enough? Is this dangerous? Is this scary? And then we all get to a point when we actually get breakthrough and we come over that fear into this new place, this new thing, this discipline, this way of thinking, this way of acting, whatever it is, this way of loving, the person we want to love, whatever. We get over that when we get to the point where we have enough deep-seated knowledge to say, it's going to be okay. I can pull this off. And so you've got American workers, 3 in 4, that's 75% of workers saying, I'm not adequately trained. Well, so you, the worker in that situation, to bring this all back home, you don't feel comfortable as a new employee going to your leader going, I'd like about 3 or 4 more days of training. I didn't quite get that. Why don't we feel comfortable doing that? Because you're worried they're going to fire you. Or they're worried that they're going to think less of you and think, oh, I hired a dud. Folks, this is natural. So I want to set you free. That you feel this way is not your fault. It's the leader's fault in 2 areas. Number 1, you haven't been trained properly. And number 2, the leader's not checked in enough to be able to go, hey, listen, we've done the training, but if you haven't gotten it yet, no big deal. We'll give you a couple extra days. Or how's the training going so far? Where are some areas where you feel confident? Where are the areas where you're not? See, that's good communication. That's a leader who's checked in. See, the leader must communicate so that you could communicate. See, it's the leader's responsibility. A bad leader would say something like this. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me you didn't feel trained? Because, you bozo. You're my new leader. I don't want to look bad. I don't want to get fired. Oh. I mean, see, that's just poor communication. So communication needs to be, leaders, and those of you that work for a leader, if they're not doing this, you need to get out. Because they're not going to change unless somebody above them trains them. You can share some of this with them, but they won't get it. Here's what good communication for a leader looks like. It's very simple. Number 1, they must be absolutely clear. And in being clear, they must be honest. And then they must be compassionate. I care for you. I see you. I want to help you, give you the resources you need. I want to be clear about what I need to do, clear what you need to do. See, we want to know where we stand. That's the essence of good communication. If you're not under that, as a leader, you're not doing it, you need to change.